Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Podcast, the show where we take a given movie genre and we explore those good titles that are so good they make you psycho, those bad titles that are like a kick in the rear window, and those ugly movies that are so bizarre they leave you feeling like you have vertigo. Hey guys, I'm Mark.
Hey, I'm Kelly.
And I'm Charles.
And today we are exploring Alfred Hitchcock movies.
Woo!
Yeah!
Finally.
It's been a while. You guys, what did you guys told me this last year sometime? And then we did is October, I think. And then we ended up doing a Christmas horror special. So, yeah. So it's been a little while.
Better late than never, though. We're finally getting around to it. I can't believe we've been doing this. This is our 5th year doing this, and we've never done Hitchcock. That boggles. I don't even know how that happened.
Well, and like it was one of those ones. Remember, I chose it off your list. You guys gave me the list, and then one of them was going to be one I wasn't going to like, and then I chose that one. You're like, oh, that's right. Yeah. We haven't done this, so like, here we go. By the way, the one up here, Mark, actually, that was a Christmas present. That reminds me how we actually met, Mark. I don't know if you remember.
That's right. It was like a Christmas Switch scenario where we both look exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I was a prince in Belgravia, and you were just a small time baker, and we decided to switch it up because I was tired of being a prince.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It was really cool. That was good. Okay.
And then I drew that drawing.
Yeah.
What a storied past you have.
It was. We've done a lot. We've been a lot in our past lives. All right. So then, I was going to say that we probably need to talk about Hitchcock a little bit.
Nah.
No, okay, never mind. Then I'll just pedal on that. No, but he's one of the most, well-known directors of all time. In a Hitchcock film, people know what that was. People, he was a marketing genius. If you watch, we did that one over Psycho a while back, and like he walks through the Psycho house and talking about it. Very cool personality, very much associated with his films. You can't separate them out, and he was ahead of his time in a lot of ways. And one of the things we were talking about is kind of like when we did Joan Crawford. We talked about how that movie was made about her, and it was flattering, and there's a lot of stuff that came out, and we're trying to separate that out from the artist. There's been stuff about Hitchcock that's less than flattering, especially from Tippi Hedren. She, especially lately, she's talked about how hard he was on her during the making of The Birds, and then Marnie. I don't think anyone's outright accused him of like sexual assault or anything like that, but she acted like he was really hard on her, and he had interesting perspectives on stuff. There was definitely the Hitchcock woman, the blonde, and in some of his movies you could kind of almost feel him working through his emotions, especially in Vertigo. Vertigo is very much like it's all about dressing up a woman to look a certain way, and that character is very much like Hitchcock would have been. The look, the blonde hair, the way she spoke. So he definitely had his interesting qualities like that. We're not really going to talk about that too much. I will get into some of that probably a little bit, especially when we talk about Marnie. But I think enough of that probably, we probably won't get too much. Because like I said, I want to celebrate this man. He's a great director. I was also going to say, though, he was nominated 5 times for an Oscar, Best Director, never won. But they did give him an honorary award. And I have a little clip that I wanted to show real quick from it because it makes me laugh. So real quick, here we go.
The familiar figure of Alfred Hitchcock. Thank you. Indeed.
And that was it. He literally just walks up to the stage and says thank you, and that's it. And that's his only Oscar moment, really. The man that's made some of the greatest motion pictures of all time, and that's it. That's his type of humor. A very quirky sense of humor.
I had seen this a while back, and at some special I was watching about Hitchcock, and they were saying that it was because the guess was that he was kind of offended that he never got it, and he deserved more than that, and so this was just kind of a snub.
Right, and it works. It's I think it's really funny. It cracks me up for sure. All right, so let's dive right in. Let's see. So the first one, if we're doing it chronologically, the first one would be Champagne from 1928. And I do want to say that Hitchcock was born on a Friday the 13th in 1899, so he's August 13th, 1899. And so when he was coming up, he was in his 20s. He was making a lot of silent films, especially in his home country of England. So he has a lot of English silent films, the most famous of which is probably The Lodger, which is about Jack the Ripper. And
I forgot that was a Hitchcock one.
Yeah, and it's really cool because it was a silent film, and so he wanted to show like someone walking around upstairs, and it's like how do you show a sound? So what he did is he made transparent ceiling so that you could see the footsteps from below, and he had a swinging like lamp thing that could shake, so you could visually see this person walking around in a silent film. Huh. And that was kind of how he got. Well, no, it wasn't his first film, but it was, I guess, how he got more famous. And eventually, he came to the U.S., and he was making, obviously, talking films by that point. But there's a whole period of like silent films before he really got famous, and a whole period of British films, and then it was mostly American. So Champagne is it's a silent film, but I can't remember if it was an American or British-made one. But let me read you the synopsis, and then we'll do a trailer. So, like I said, it's from 1928, and it's about a spoiled heiress. A spoiled heiress defies her father by running off to marry her lover. However, Daddy has a few tricks up his sleeve. So here is the trailer for Champagne. It's actually not a trailer so much as a very short clip, but it's got a really cool. It's a really cool shot, so I like it. Okay, so that's it. Pretty short. What do you guys think this is on my list? Do you think it's my good, bad, or ugly?
I believe this is going to be your ugly.
Oh, that's interesting. I was going to say it was your bad, and that that Marnie was your bad, but I won't be surprised if it's the opposite if Kelly's right.
So neither one of you think it's my good film?
No.
If it is, we're going to have to really have a conversation, Charles.
No, I'm kidding.
Dramatic.
It wasn't dramatic. Yeah. I'm kidding. I do own this movie. Does that change your mind?
No. I'm sticking with it.
All right. It is actually my bad.
All
right. So
really?
Yeah. I really don't like this movie at all. And it kind of, there's going to be a theme tonight, about the way women are portrayed in a Hitchcock movie. In this one, all of the men are very condescending to her. I mean, the whole premise is that her father tricks her, makes her think they're not rich anymore. He lies to her because he doesn't want her to marry the guy she loves. And even the guy she loves is kind of a jerk to her. What? What's up, Kelly?
No, it's just funny to me because I agree with you. If I were ranking like my personal good, bad, and ugly on this would be my bad. Marnie would be ugly, and Rear Window would be good. But I was positive that have you seen Marnie? I was so sure, like knowing you, that you were going to pick Marnie. It's your bad.
I have seen Marnie. There's a reason I picked it.
All right. Okay.
As my good or ugly. Well, I mean. I like I said, I didn't. The main character is annoying to me for one. The whole thing of her crashing. Now, there are some really cool shots. The shot that we just showed through the champagne glass is really neat.
It is.
It's even intriguing that she crashes and comes out. And I was like, all right. But again, all of the men in this are annoying. And then they're really telling her what to do, pushing her around. It's very clear she has no authority. And that just irks me. Like, you know, one of the things too is I was going through a lot of Hitchcock's movies trying to find a bad one, and I would get to one and it would be like, well, this isn't that bad. This is actually pretty good. Mm-hmm. Like I watched Waltzes from Vienna, which if you look through the list a lot, because when you're doing things like this, sometimes, you know, we haven't seen all of the movies. He made over 50 movies. I haven't seen them all. So you usually go online, you just see what the critics say, what people say, and Waltzes from Vienna came up almost every time. And I watched it, and I actually really enjoyed it. And so I'm like, I can't do that one. But then Champagne also came up a lot. So did Frenzy, but I like Frenzy. But Champagne, it's only a little over an hour, and it is a chore to watch. It bored me. It's so boring. There's not, other than those few cool shots that occur at the beginning, there's not really any classic Hitchcock stuff, right? So I don't know. I just didn't like it that much. Out of all of them.
Kelly, can I ask? I was talking with Charles about the version I watched, and the version I found on Amazon streaming did not have any sound whatsoever. It didn't have music or anything. Is that true for you, or did you have one with music?
Yes. In fact, I mentioned the same thing to Charles earlier. I did Amazon Prime as well, no sound, and it really was jarring to me because usually on even silent films you'll get that orchestral backing track, right, or some kind of grainy film noise or some kind of something, but it was just pure silence, and it made it really hard to watch for me.
Well, yeah, right. We talked about that earlier, yeah, and so the version I watched on DVD has sound. It has music, so I do wonder if that would have changed your opinion. Do either one of you like this movie?
No.
All right.
The problem I had was, I found some of the problems you did, Charles, with the way the men were treating the women. But Betty Balfour in this is really bizarre and kind of awkward. She'll suddenly switch emotions from like happy to suddenly very distraught and sad, or then she would like be sad and shocked and then start dancing really awkwardly like around the men and laughing.
Yeah.
Laughing in a way that nobody has ever laughed before until this movie. It was kind of odd to watch. Although I did like some of the really cool scenes with the practical effects of the moving ship too. A couple times when they're getting her, like there's a guy on the bow of the ship and it's like rocking up and down, and then as the boat sways, you could tell the men the servers were swaying with the camera. It was kind of cool.
Yeah. No, and like I said, there's some little Hitchcock touches, but overall, like it did not feel like a Hitchcock film, as I know it anyway.
No.
And for a silent film, I felt like it was missing at least half of the dialogue cards.
Yes.
There were there are almost no words.
Yeah, that's true too. The version I had the same way. I was kind of wondering about that.
Yeah, and I didn't understand what was happening half the time. I never got that her father made his money with champagne, hence the title, until I looked up a Wikipedia, just the summary of it on Wikipedia, just to find out what actually happened in the movie.
Well, I agree.
Go ahead, Kelly. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it just felt like there was one sentence title card every half hour or something. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it was more frequent than that, but it was like I definitely felt like I was missing information, and I don't know. Like I just love dialogue in movies. Dialogue is one of my favorite parts of any movie, and so for me, like silent films aren't. I'm not the biggest silent film person to begin with, but when they're like this and you just have no clue, and all of it is context clues, I just find it really hard to stay engaged in it.
Well, and I was going to say, on a side note, though, like, the version I watched, so, like, I watched a little bit of the Amazon one. I think I watched, like, a preview or something, and it had a really nice transfer, decent transfer anyway. The version I watched was on DVD, and it was compressed, and it was really blurry and bad. So, like, I almost wonder if there's a way to combine our two versions we saw, because I feel like you saw a clearer version, a nicer picture, and I saw a blurry one with good audio, at least, had music. So, anyway. By the way, speaking of music, it's, what's his name? Is it Bernard Herman, the one that usually does Hitchcock's movies. He did the score for Psycho. I don't think he did the
That
music.
sounds right.
I don't think he did the music on any of these 3 films that I picked, which is unusual because he did almost all of them. One of them he had a falling out, and I can't remember which. It may have been. It was either Marnie or Torn Curtain. But so anyway, little side note.
Interesting.
All right, so you guys ready? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to mention the couple. You said that the boyfriend wasn't that good. I think that was my problem too. Like, there's nobody to root for in this movie. She was just kind of almost dumb and pouty the whole time, and he was kind of a horrible boyfriend, and the father was horrible. So, like, there's nobody heroic here in a protagonist kind of way.
I agree.
And it was very confusing. Like, what in the credits, the boyfriend is just called the boy, and then that mustachioed weirdo was called the man. But it took me so long to figure out who that guy could possibly be. Like, every time he would loom on screen, like, you know, not twirling his mustache, but he might as well have been twirling his mustache because he was just bad. Like, yeah. You know, you expect he's like an old timey railway conductor or something, but he like I just kept as the whole first half hour of the movie. I was like, "Who is this guy?" And
why is he leering at that?
Yes, does she know him? Is he her father's business partner? Who's to say? But yeah, very weird.
Yes, it was. But again, even that, it didn't keep my attention. I was really bored. So.
Me too. Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, you guys ready to move on to the next one?
Yes.
Rear
Good
Window.
bad pick, Charles.
It is going to be Rear Window. And so this is from 1954. And
Mr. Ugly.
This is my good.
Man.
Now, those of you that, especially you, Kelly, you were around when we made our top 10 movies of all time list, and this was on my top 10, so that should have given it away right there. Yeah.
Wow.
But I do love this movie. I like it a lot. I had a really hard time picking it. It's hard to pick the top Hitchcock film.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, in no particular order other than this one being my favorite, I would say like Vertigo, Psycho, North by Northwest, Strangers on a Train, and this one. So those are probably my top. Notorious is up there too. Notorious is really good. They just came out with a new. Is that your favorite?
No, but we've so many times like you got to see Notorious. Was this your first time to see it when you were watching for this podcast?
That's right. I'd seen clips of it, but I'd never watched all the way through. I watched it for this one, which is interesting because they just Criterion just came out with a new version of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it came out last Tuesday. I didn't get it. I watched it before that, but
awesome.
They apparently, if you guys don't know, Criterion really goes out of their way. They restore films, go back to the original negatives, clean the heck out of it, do all kinds of special features. So if you're a fan of that movie, you should check it out because I hear it's amazing, and it is great. And so that had Cary Grant in it, which Hitchcock liked as a leading man. Rear Window has James Stewart in it and Grace Kelly. Both of them he used a few times. And so here's the synopsis. A wheelchair-bound photographer spies on his neighbors from his apartment window and becomes convinced one of them has committed murder. All right, and then here is the Rear Window clip.
This is the scene of the crime. A crime of passion, filmed in a way you have never seen before, and as no one else would dare attempt, but the screen's master of suspense, the producer-director who shocked the world with Psycho. This is the apartment of a man named Jeffries, a news photographer whose beat used to be the world. Right now, his world has shrunk down to the size of this window. He's been watching the people across the way. Nobody seems to pull their blinds during a hot spell like this. He knows a lot about them by now. Too much, perhaps. For instance, down there on the second floor, the woman pacing about. He calls her Miss Lonely Hearts. So lonely that even death seems like a friend. These are the newlyweds on a honeymoon no one will ever forget. He calls her Miss Hearing Aid, an artist of a very odd and strange art. The songwriter who plays the same melody over and over again. A genius or insane? This is the traveling salesman and his invalid wife. Out of their arguments and nagging comes a weird kind of love. Miss Torso, the body beautiful. That is, viewed from a safe distance.
Those are just a few of my neighbors. First, I watched them just to kill time, but then I couldn't take my eyes off them, just as you won't be able to.
And you won't be able to take your eyes off the glowing beauty of Grace Kelly, who shares the heart and curiosity of James Stewart in this story of a romance shadowed by the terror of a horrifying secret.
So yeah, I don't understand why this trailer has the "See It After Psycho." This is like must have been made after it, or they re-released it or whatever. Because it came out before Psycho. In fact, so like I said, this is with James Stewart. He also made Vertigo in '59, I believe, and Vertigo didn't do very well. A lot of people didn't get it, and so Vertigo's kind of ahead of its time, way ahead of its time. So that actually like led into when he wanted to make Psycho, which was a crazy subject. They didn't want to give him the money. One, because this Vertigo didn't do as well at the box office, and two, it was a really crazy, bizarre subject. And that's why, if you've seen the Anthony Hopkins movie where he plays Hitchcock, that's what it's about. And also because of that, that's why he didn't use Jim Stewart after Vertigo anymore. He didn't use him at all. I guess he thought he was, I don't know, whatever it was. They never worked together again. Anyway, so Rear Window.
Shame.
This is, like I said, it's one of my favorite movies. Part of it is there's a lot of interesting things going on here. Each apartment scene, each window that he's watching is like its own little movie. It's its own little vignette, and he describes them and he's talking about them, and it's really kind of fascinating to think what Hitchcock had to do to set all that up. I mean, you've got, like I said, you've essentially got multiple movies going on, and they're all entertaining, and you care about all of them. Lonely Hearts, when she's committing suicide or thinking about committing suicide. The Newlyweds, and you do it in such a subtle way. Like, you're clearly showing the newlyweds, making passionate newlywed love behind the curtain, and you could just subtly do it, and a lot of that's the implication of things, especially when he watches, what he thinks is the murderer happening. And it's very subtle, and they don't actually show anything. You show a knife. You don't show any blood. Raymond Burr is just very menacing. And that's the brilliance of it. It's the less is more approach, especially in this movie. And especially using every angle is from that apartment. When they want to go in for a closer shot, it's because he pulls out binoculars, or he pulls out a longer lens. There's no cheats to it. Everything happens within this one room, which is something that Hitchcock did a few times. He did that with Rope, which I love. Rope is great. And then Lifeboat. There's a few that he'd like to do all in one location, and it really ups the suspense. Especially in this case, when he's in a wheelchair, he can't move, and that leads to the famous climax, where he can't go anywhere, and what's he gonna do? But it's also interesting because of the voyeuristic nature of this film. Movies in general, you are kind of a voyeur looking into these other people's lives. That's just the role you take as an audience member. But in this movie in particular, you are forced to become a peeping Tom. Mm-hmm. You were literally looking through his eyes, and it's the heterosexual male gaze. So like when he's looking at the woman, the ballerina woman that's constantly dancing around in her underwear, bending over, that's as a viewer, you're forced to look at it through his eyes. And you got to think that's also probably something Hitchcock's working through too, showing that. And some of that can be, I think it's a little gratuitous, but I also think it's kind of a brilliant commentary, because you have the detective friend that comes by, Doyle, and he's watching her too, and Jimmy Stewart asked him about, oh, how's your wife? It's like there's some interesting things going on there, because it's not really saying that it's healthy. They kind of poke fun at him for being a peeping Tom a few times, but it's what would the average person do? I mean, I kind of feel like anybody would be looking at the same stuff if they were in a wheelchair bound. So it's kind of interesting, but it's kind of interesting that, like I said, it's forcing you to be a certain kind of peeping Tom. This movie has been remade. I think Suburbia was kind of the same thing. Christopher Reeve made a remake of it, a television movie, and it's definitely had its influence on the culture. Like I think there's a lot of movies that kind of do it. I also, as far as the Hitchcock woman, you have Grace Kelly, another one, To Catch a Thief and all that. The blonde woman again, the male fantasy, and in this movie it's really interesting because James Stewart doesn't want to get married. He's very much against marriage, and he thinks she can't quite hack it, the lifestyle he wants to live. Constantly puts her down, especially towards the beginning. That's another interesting thing too. He's kind of a jerk in this movie. He's not your typical, aw shucks, nice guy that he typically is, and it's interesting. It's an interesting thing, and when they're watching Miss Lonely Hearts Woman, I keep saying Miss Lonely Hearts Club. That's because of Beatles there, but they're watching Lonely Hearts, and she has a young lover over there, and he's like, oh, kind of a big age difference, and I don't know if he's just oblivious to the age difference between himself and Grace Kelly, or if it just doesn't matter because he's an older guy and that's acceptable to have the younger woman. I wasn't sure if that was just a subtle thing Hitchcock was doing, or if it was just a sign of the time, because I looked up their ages, and there's at least a 20-year gap between the two. She was in her 20s, mid-20s. He's in his mid-40s. And I bet Miss Lonely Hearts, that was probably around the same age gap between her and her lover. So I just thought that was an interesting commentary, But anyway, it's kind of interesting that in this movie, by her putting herself in danger and her wanting to investigate it, being one of the only people that believes him that there's a murder that happened, her going across, it's a really interesting story dynamic. It's really, that engages me, and especially when she goes over there and you can't help her because you are basically might as well be in the wheelchair with James Stewart. You can't go out there and help her, and she's going to get caught. And then that moment where she gets the wife's ring and she holds it up, and then Raymond Burr looks over and he's looking right at the camera, right at you, at us, and that's just a great moment. I loved all that stuff. It's also, there's a lot of stuff that does surprise me. It surprises me they killed a dog. It surprises me the kind of subject matter they went down. It seems, it's kind of crazy that for not really showing anything, it seems like you saw a lot.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I've talked a ton about it. You guys take over.
Yeah, I was going to say, first of all, one of my greatest anxieties in movies is when somebody is in a place they're not supposed to be, when you're in somebody else's house and they could come back at any moment, that always creates suspense for me. I remember this movie being James Stewart alone a lot. And it's not, he's almost never alone. It's either the detective's there or Grace Kelly's there helping him, and it's only when, so I think that's just the tone that Hitchcock creates, even though there are all these people surrounding him, but there's still that feeling of menace. And going back to the way it's set up with them watching the neighbors, I think this movie kind of transcends genres because he brings a little bit of theater into it where James Stewart is the audience looking out at these people, but he's also a part of those people's lives and interacts with them regularly. And so it's kind of a really cool thing he's done here in order to tell this story. And like you said, Charles, I love all those side stories as well. I don't know, Kelly?
Well, it's kind of like a Greek chorus as well, right? When you say that the three of them commenting on different things is kind of, I don't know, seems almost Shakespearean in some ways to me, like the commentary that we're hearing. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many good things to love about this movie. Grace Kelly is amazing. I mean, of all the Hitchcock movies, of all the Hitchcock blondes, she's just far and away the best in this movie. And she's amazing in Dial M for Murder. She's amazing in To Catch a Thief. She just has this, I don't even know, a certain charm about her. And my only qualm with the movie is the fact that Jimmy Stewart is so, oh Grace, oh like in the beginning of the movie, like you're not gonna tell me, and I'm not gonna accept that Foxy Grace Kelly as a 25-year-old woman is gonna be literally, like not literally, but almost literally throwing herself at you, Jimmy Stewart, with your shiny silver hair. Like you're gonna be into that. You just are, like, with all of her effortless fashion, and she's so cool and like sharp and witty, and
she's almost too perfect in this movie. I think she's almost unrealistically perfect.
Yeah, I would agree. And because of that, like, and he's still trying to act like he's not into her, and I never really buy that. But how amazing is the scene where she's like, he's sitting in the window and he's using his binoculars, and she's trying to just, kind of be like, hey, come back to the present here. And she like looms over him and like gives him that kiss. And it's just like, you're just watching it like this, like giddy with joy. Whoa.
Sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead.
No, that's okay. No, that's such a powerful scene. Watching all of her charms manifest, and even he starts to kind of crack a little bit, and be like, okay, yeah, like you're pretty cool. But
when she brings her small compact suitcase over, because he tells her, they live out of one suitcase, and then I love this scene. I don't know why, but it's like when she's pulling all the stuff out and she pulls the sexy lingerie and she's like, preview of coming attractions or what. It's like she's just so cool in this movie. She really is. And again, I wondered if that's Hitchcock working through something. Like, is it
what
more
do you
than
mean by that, Charles? I'm kind of fascinated about what you think he was working through.
Well, I feel like so I feel like movies in a lot of ways for directors, they're living vicariously through their characters they make, and the lens becomes their eye. And is it essentially like Hitchcock is putting himself in Jimmy Stewart's role? Like, I feel like he's trying to live through that. And what would it be like if this sexy blonde perfect woman, was all over me and wanted nothing but me? I feel like that's what he's kind of doing. It's Hitchcock has essentially put himself on screen. That's what I mean by working it out. It's like, I feel like it's kind of a psychology for him in a way. It's a therapy session, if you will. Like he gets to live out his fantasy, by creating a character.
About that, based on what we know.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So like that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Was he rough on his women? Did he? Because like even the Anthony Hopkins Hitchcock movie kind of made it seem like he was a voyeur, and that's where the idea for the psycho thing came. And I don't know if that's true, but if you're buying into all that, I definitely feel like he put himself into these movies, good or bad.
Yeah.
But I do think he kind of created his fantasy woman. So you're talking about it's a perfect woman, and that's by choice. I'm sure Hitchcock made it that way.
Yeah. I think I liked that she was overly perfect. I think it worked.
Made a perfect woman that loved a non-perfect man kind of thing, So
yeah. How great was her line about the ballet girl juggling wolves?
Yeah,
she's doing the woman's hardest job, juggling wolves. I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
There's so many quotable moments in this movie, and so many of them too. We haven't even talked about Thelma Ritter, but I love her. She's so hilarious.
Well, and if you you may not catch it the first time you watch it, but then it's like she kind of predicts the whole movie at the very beginning when she's talking to him. She tells him exactly, like, kind of roughly what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's pretty brilliant.
And even she comments on the perfectness of Grace Kelly's character. They're talking, she's giving him his physical therapy massage, and he's like, oh no, she's too raw, whatever. And she says, yeah, get out of here, you perfect woman. You're no good for me. And so she's just this. You're talking about it being like a Greek chorus. She is very much there in the background, commenting on every little thing and kind of drawing attention to all of the foibles of his character and just the silliness of him doing everything that he's doing, really.
Right. And she's probably closer in age to him, so it's kind of interesting. He's got like this perfect woman. Anyway, but what's kind of cool too, though, that I didn't really think about till now, is he uses a lot of what she says to him at the beginning. He uses that against Grace Kelly. Like, when they're having their discussion later on, he's, like, throwing all this stuff that they had discussed earlier right back at her. So that's kind of interesting. He's, like, twisting this logic around to push her away.
Yep.
So that's kind of interesting. All right. You look very confused, Mark. Or you look like you don't buy into that?
No. Me?
Yeah.
This is my thinking. My thinking face often gets mistaken for, like, confounded or confused face.
Well, I just look like you're disagreeing, so yeah, go ahead.
No, I agree completely.
Okay.
And I was going to say, too, I like that seeing all of the neighbors and the vignettes, it's like instant feedback on his own worries. Like, getting back to him struggling with should he stay with Grace Kelly. Like, as soon as they talk about married couples, they see the newlyweds come in and are happy, and then you see, this lonely heart who's lonely, and then you see this, the actual main murder character who's murdering his wife. It's like, it's just great. Like, I just love that he's working through all these things, and then he gets instant feedback on them. It's like his subconscious. It's almost like a dream. Like, his subconscious showing him elements of his own personal psyche. It's great.
Yeah. There's a lot to unravel with this movie. It really is. It's not as simple a premise as it first may sound.
Yeah.
All right. You guys ready to move on to Marnie?
Sure.
All right, so Marnie is from 1964, and here's the synopsis. Mark marries Marnie, although she is a habitual thief and has serious psychological problems, and he tries to help her confront and resolve them. And here is the trailer.
How do you do? I'm Alfred Hitchcock, and I would like to tell you about my latest motion picture, Marnie, which will be coming to this theater soon. Marnie is a very difficult picture to classify. It is not psycho, nor do we have a horde of birds flapping about and pecking at people willy-nilly. We do have two very interesting human specimens, a man and a woman. One might call Marnie a sex mystery, that is, if one used such words. But it is more than that. Perhaps the best way to tell you about the picture is to show you a few scenes. This is Mark coming down the stairs of his family home outside Philadelphia. He is a thoughtful man, dark and brooding. He is, in a sense, a hunter. And this is what he is hunting. Marnie. Seeing her in her mother's modest house, one wonders how two such different people could cross paths. It was certainly not Marnie's idea. Marnie was going about her own business like any normal girl. Happy, happy, happy. Suddenly into this colorful life comes Mark. At first he didn't know what to make of Marnie. She does seem a rather excitable type. What would account for this strange behavior? Has she just realized that she forgot her umbrella?
The colors. Stop the colors.
What colors?
Marnie's trouble goes deeper than that. Far deeper. And this is the problem which Mark must probe. But first, something must be done to calm this girl. Our hero applies mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. But that may give you the impression this picture is all sex and no mystery. Not so at all. Here, for example, Marnie is speaking to, I'm not sure who actually, but he is a man from her past, a past she seems to be denying. Oh dear, they're at it again. Let me assure you that this is all in the spirit of investigation. And this, here is further proof that Marnie is a talking picture.
You don't love me. I'm just something you've caught. You think I'm some kind of animal you've trapped.
That's right, you are. I've caught something really wild this time, haven't I? I've tracked you and caught you, and by God, I'm going to keep you.
That should be quite enough. If you wish to hear more, you will have to buy a ticket. As for which one of them is the wild animal, there are times when I'm not sure. I don't think that was necessary. Actually, I think I should withhold comment, since I'm not certain I understand this scene. I shall leave the explanation to your own vivid imagination. It would appear that Mark has a single solution for all problems. This is not so. Mark is a complex man, dark and forbidding. He can also be kind and considerate. And he is also a troubled man. Troubled because he cannot seem to unravel the mystery of the girl called Marnie.
All right, so
And we're back now. Let's talk about some more movies.
Mark, you got it. Yeah, I was gonna say we got to do your James
One
Stewart.
thing I didn't say about James Stewart is, like, most of what I had known him for was Harvey and the Christmas movie that I can never remember the title of, even though it's
It's
so
a Wonderful
popular.
Life.
Yeah, It's a Wonderful Life. And so I liked seeing him in Rear Window because he really was kind of shining with his acting. But anyway, we're talking about Marnie now. Let's talk about Marnie.
Marnie.
Well, so this is my ugly pick, and I was saying during that trailer we were talking. For this one, this was my easiest one to pick for ugly. It was the only one as far as I'm concerned. It was hard to pick a good one. It was hard to pick a bad one, but this one is ugly.
But Marnie certainly is ugly.
And part of it is so there's a lot going on. I was reading reviews about it, and they were saying it was kind of ahead of its time because it was trying to psychoanalyze someone and emotional support. But I also feel like now it's outdated, it's antiquated now because it's such rudimentary, psychology. But the reason it's my ugly is because, first of all, I think it's a terrible film. It's basically she's traumatized by a past event, and she's compelled to steal now and move around and not want to settle down. She kind of hates men. And here comes Sean Connery, and he knows she's stolen from him, and he blackmails her into marrying him.
Correct.
And then, which is odd in and of itself, and then on their honeymoon, which he's paying all this crazy amounts of cash, he rapes her. I mean, it's insane.
Although technically at the time you wouldn't be able to legally call it that because they were married. It wasn't illegal to rape your wife until the 1970s. But yeah, like my reaction to this movie was very conflicted because at the same time that Sean Connery's character is saying all of these like horribly sexist things and forcing her into a marriage and blackmailing her, and his reasoning is that, if you don't marry me, some worse guy's going to come along and blackmail you into doing something worse than marrying me. It's crazy. But her response to him is like spot on. It's like spot on 2019 feminist, response of what it should be. Of like, she throws it right back in his face. So I was kind of almost proud of this movie in that regard of like her side of things. I don't know what y'all thought about that.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying. That's why it's my ugly, because it's like, on the one hand, he's doing all these crazy things. The first time you even see him, he's like, "Oh, the brunette with the legs," and that thing. And then it's like later, but he's doing it for good reasons, and it's like that's kind of a conflict because he really does care about her, as presented in this movie. He cares about her a lot and wants to help her in ways that no other men have ever done. But at the same time, he blackmails her, and so there's a good ethical question, like, if someone is really suffering, how far can you go to help them? What does cross the line? I feel I feel the rape crossed the line, obviously, but
probably rape is going to is crossing the line.
Blackmail, but even then, like, is it implied that? I mean, I don't know. I guess I need to rewatch the movie too, which I would rewatch this movie just to. But is it implied that she's never been with a man before? I
think that's implied. Yeah.
So, one could argue he's doing it for not necessarily to rape her, not necessarily out of lust, just to show her that it's all right with a man. I mean, there are some stuff you could unpack there too. It's still wrong, and so all of that. But on top of that, this movie, for many parts, is just utterly ridiculous. Like, every time she sees the color red, and I don't even like the effect they do. It was cool in Rear Window when they flashed the red because he's, flashing the bulbs at the end. That was a neat effect. They do a similar thing here, and it's just over the top and ridiculous. Yeah. And I didn't think her performance was good at all. Like, I did not like her in this movie. I know, Mark, you're saying her reactions were good, but I didn't like her performance. I thought it was too over the top.
I don't like her performance in this movie either.
Okay. But I actually liked Sean Connery's performance a lot. And this is 64. I think this was right around when Goldfinger was coming out. So Sean Connery's James Bond in his prime in this time. And I thought he was fantastic in it. Despite doing these horrendous things, I actually liked his character. I just didn't like anything about Marnie. And I didn't like the horse riding scene. And that was really cheesy and over the top. And I didn't like his sister. I didn't like any of the supporting characters, really. And that trailer calls it a sex. What did it say? A sex story, a sex thriller.
Yeah.
The trailer
sex mystery.
The trailer shows off all the kissing scenes. Like the first time that she's also terrified of thunderstorms. In the first thunderstorm she encounters, Sean Connery basically kisses her against her will and kind of just starts. That was an offensive scene before the rape, but they show that in the trailer. And the trailer just makes it seem like a tender love moment between them. Mm-hmm. And I just... it's just over the top and ridiculous.
Well, yeah, the other thing that was interesting is the scene when they do first have sex and he's kind of forcing himself on her. I should just say he forces herself on her because she clearly doesn't want it. But the way that Hitchcock films it is it's clearly in her perspective, and it's this horrible trauma because Sean Connery's looming over the camera very darkly.
Yes.
And it's like that's what I liked about this film is that it's not romanticizing Sean Connery's actions. It's really putting us in her point of view and showing both sides of it. So
which is that comes back around to the point I was talking about earlier, where Hitchcock's putting himself in his movies. He's not really doing that as much in this one, I would say, because he's clearly. I don't think he's wanting us to. I don't think he's living through the Sean Connery character. He is, as you say, the audience, the camera is more on Marnie's character. So it's kind of an interesting thing that he's trying to do with it. I think that because she made the Birds and then this movie. This was his next movie after the Birds. And she never made another movie with him again. And like I said, recently she's talked about how hard he was on her as a director. In the Birds, he would release actual birds, supposedly, and really traumatized her. And in this movie, kind of the same thing. So, on the one hand, you could say, look what he made her do. He had Sean Connery strip her of her clothes, and then she gets raped, and she's kind of traumatized in it. But on the other hand, as you say, Mark, the camera is a sympathetic viewpoint. It's her perspective, and I don't know. It is a very interesting mix. If Vertigo was Hitchcock totally putting himself out there, kind of bearing his soul to the camera, what he likes in women and all that, this is more not quite the same. He's shielding a lot of it and trying out new perspectives, I would say. So, but what were you going to say? I feel like I cut you off somewhere on there, Mark.
No,
okay.
That's good. The one thing I was going to say in addition was that I hate the soft lens in any of these old movies where they keep using a soft lens on women and not on men. It just bothers me. I don't know.
There is one scene, I believe, where they do show it's like a soft lens on Sean Connery, and it was kind of interesting.
Oh, that's okay with me.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna. No. I was saying it was interesting that it was back and forth soft, but Yeah, and then the other thing, that actually reminds me, another technical thing that Hitchcock loved, he loves rear projection stuff. And so, like, there are so many scenes where it's like they're clearly rear projection. That's probably one of the reasons I actually really like Rear Window, because they built a set for it and in a studio that they could do it, and they didn't have to do like a lot of rear projection stuff. But like, yeah. Anyway, cool. Well, so those are my picks. You know, I feel like if you guys out there, if you don't know Hitchcock stuff, you really need to watch it. There's a ton of them. Kelly was going down the list earlier, just looking and seeing everything, and there's just so many. Do you have a favorite, Mark?
No, I really haven't seen many. I saw these three, and I've seen Psycho and Birds. I think that I've also seen Dialed In for Murder, but it's been a long time since I've seen The Birds. So I mean, I would have to go with Psycho just based on the ones I remember well.
Psycho's great. Psycho's probably his most famous, I would say.
Yeah.
The Birds is great too, though. I mean, it's funny because I feel like Tippi Hedren is so bad in this. Like, her acting is not good, but it is in The Birds. Like, she's good.
I meant to say that
earlier. I don't
earlier.
understand that.
That's the thing. I was actually meant to talk about that. Like, just because I don't like her acting in this movie, I loved it in The Birds. She was very good. She was a different person in that movie. Yeah. And again, they were back to back. So. And
she had the same wardrobe for both.
Right.
I know that. She wore the same lime green.
That's a Hitchcock thing too.
Got my Tippi Hedren duds on here, but
that's a Hitchcock woman thing. Like, I think he likes them in green and blonde. So because the same thing in Vertigo. So
it's true. Well, they did rock it, but I just didn't quite get that, because she had so many dramatic, poignant scenes in The Birds, and it's not like she can't do dramatic, poignant acting, because she did. Like, she was terrified in The Birds. I mean, her hair was all askew, and she was all cut up and had tears streaming down. But then anytime anything, like the recounting of the trauma when she finally remembers at the end of Marnie, like, what was that? I mean, she was.
It's so bad. It's so
bad.
So bad. That whole ending sequence was terrible.
I wonder if it was the character having suppressed it, and that made for some kind of cardboardy acting, right? Because she's trying to act like she's suppressing something, but it ended up just not being
and it may be that in Birds, Hitchcock maybe did terrify her more. Maybe he got genuine performance out of it. So in this one, it's not like he can say, "Oh, well, you had this trauma. Your mom was raped in front of you and you killed someone." I don't know. You can't really method act through that one.
Spoiler!
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. And Bruce Dern is a sailor.
I of course he was. I couldn't get over that. That was really funny. He's always.
What else has he been in? I don't know him.
He's in a lot of westerns.
He's in a lot of stuff. He was most recent thing. He was in the Hateful Eight, and he was in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's in Nebraska. Nebraska's great. If you haven't seen that one, a recent movie. He was nominated for Best Actor for
the Hateful Eight.
He was the old general that was sitting there playing chess, and he had to pretend, when they came through.
Yeah.
He's the one that Samuel L. Jackson was really messing with and talking about his son and all that. Yeah. He's a really great actor. He was also in Family Plot, which Family Plot was Hitchcock's last movie. A lot of people say that's a bad film, and it's not great, but it's pretty good. He made Frenzy, and then he made Family Plot. So he made one more British film, and then he made his last movie. It was an American film. And the last shot of Family Plot is the main character, the woman, winking at the camera. So that's kind of the last moment in a Hitchcock film ever, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. So, all right. Well, you guys got anything else you want to say about Hitchcock?
I don't think so.
No, just kind of like we were saying with Billy Wilder. I wish this episode allowed us to. I wish our format allowed us to discuss a little bit more, because there are so many good ones. It's a shame. We kind of mentioned some in passing, but
maybe we should do the good, the bad of the podcast.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
3 good movies.
It will be 3 hours long.
Yeah. 2 days later.
So I think it's your pick next time, Mark, and we're not picking for you. So
that's
what's your genre going to be?
Mine. All right, my genre shall be, as an English teacher and English major and writer, we are going to be watching good, bad, and ugly movies based on well-regarded fiction.
Ooh.
Interesting.
So,
okay.
Kind of classic books, but one of them is not really a classic. So my picks are The Time Machine from 2002, which H.G. Wells' grandson directed. Beowulf, Zemeckis' Beowulf 2007, and The Road 2009. Cormac McCarthy's story. So those are my picks. I almost picked. I don't know if I should say it for the podcast, but I almost picked. What's the Frankly, My Dear, I Don't Give a Damn.
Oh, Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, I almost picked Gone with the Wind, but I don't know that was like I think the book came out the same year, and so it was more of like a popular book, popular fiction. So I wanted to do like meaty books, and that are classic and well read. So anyway, so those are my picks.
Pretty meaty. It clocks in at like 1,024 pages.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Man, The Time Machine. All right. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
All right.
I like it.
All right. Well, I think we should thank our live audience. Then we had a pretty successful live show, I think.
Yeah, thank you guys.
We want to do some shout outs. Laura, thanks for watching. Who else?
My sister's watching actually, so that's really cool.
Chandler, Sarah, thank you guys.
Thanks, Crystal. And share it because it'll be up. It's going to be posted on Facebook and we'll put it on YouTube. So definitely share it. Oh, and I don't know if you guys saw my shirt. It's Hitchcock.
Oh, I didn't realize it was his profile.
Yeah, profile with all like movies. So I thought I'd wear that.
And I've got my hat that could be something Sean Connery might wear.
Oh, dude, you got to do Sean Connery.
Yeah.
You got
Sean Connery. This is my hat. Marnie, I'm gonna turn you into an upstanding girl. Sorry. That's all I got.
Shocking.
Let's not end on that note.
We've got a question. We've got a question from our live viewers here. We got a quick question. If you've never seen a Hitchcock movie, which one would you say is a must-see? Which one would you guys pick?
Rear Window or Psycho for sure.
I think Rear Window because Psycho is so ubiquitous in pop culture. I think you'd get more out of watching the Rear Window.
And then maybe Notorious would be really good. Notorious is really good. Also, North by Northwest. If you just want a cool
Hey, they said one. Charles.
Okay.
They said one.
I would say Rear Window.
It's hard to just pick one.
I would say Rear Window, but it depends. Like because North by Northwest is just a cool action movie. It's so I don't know. It depends on if you're wanting a horror film, a thriller, or an action movie. Let's put it that way.
There you go. Yeah.
But I would say that Rear Window is obviously it's my favorite and it's one of the coolest ones. So.
Yeah, I would second that. I would say Rear Window or Notorious for me personally.
Yeah. Good picks, Charles.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's funny because it was kind of it was almost an overwhelming pick. That's why I probably would have never picked it for myself. So you guys, when I picked it, it's like, okay, now I got to do it. It's awesome. So I'm glad we did.
Pressure's on.
There's a lot of pressure. So cool. All right, guys. So you want to do the outro, Mark? We're doing it live.
Yeah,
so you got to get it right.
What's that?
You got to get it right. I usually edit that part out where we screw it up. We usually take about 2 or 3 times to do our outro, and I just screwed this one up. So take 2. Go ahead, Mark.
You can check us out at itsjustawesome.com or on iTunes at Good Bad Podcast, all one word. That's on iTunes and Twitter.
Okay.
All right, guys.
All right. Have a good one,
lot.
guys.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.